Hi, my name is Stephanie Wixon, and welcome to my virtual presentation of my master's project for IT 899. I'm a graduate student at Emporia State University, and my project is called Spanish for First Responders. So in order to support the Shawnee Mission School District's strategic plan and signature programs, the purpose of this project was to design a Spanish for First Responders course. During this project, one unit was implemented and tested by a pilot group to aid in the development of a full course curriculum. So let's talk a little bit about the ADDIE process. The first task in the design of this course was the creation of formal and informal needs assessments. These were shared with students and staff. The analysis was done through a few different ways. First, informal emails were sent to the staff for Project Blue Eagle and Medical Science. These are two of the programs that make up the signature programs in Shawnee Mission School District. I also conducted video chats or video interviews with the pilot group. And these were used just to get to know the participants, to get to know their backgrounds, to kind of put them at ease with the whole process and to determine their personal learning priorities and skills. And then last of all, I sent out an anonymous Google form to determine the participant attitude about the signature program and about the possibility of adding this course. So both parties agreed that a course of this nature would be useful to the program. When they were surveyed, students expressed that some of the most important vocabulary to them would be words to assess bodily pain and injury. I gave a long list of options, and that stood out as something that was important to all first responders. So for this reason, that was chosen as the evaluative pilot unit for this course. I used ADDIE and the Rapid Instructional Design Model to effectively design quality instruction. And the purpose of that was to create appropriate and effective design while still assessing the needs of students, the program, and the instructors. I also wanted to allow room to improve at each stage of the design and development, and I wanted to be able to go back and reassess so that this could be the best end product possible. The instruction was designed to give students a little bit more control over their pace of their learning. In the needs assessment, that stood out as something that was important to students as they liked their independence in the signature program. It also gave them control over the amount of content that was learned. Based on the initial needs assessment, learning activities included both visual and verbal stimuli. So the learning design included a few main components. First, they were given an essential vocabulary list and an optional additional list for those students that wanted to go a little bit deeper in the material, students that felt more comfortable with Spanish. They had a little bit bigger of a list. Students were given real-world listening examples. They were assigned role-play scenarios to allow them to kind of practice through the new content they had learned. And then a learning assessment was given at the end of this learning unit that was very similar to the instruction. It included a role-play scenario that allowed them to demonstrate their proficiency with each of the unit objectives. These were the unit objectives. First, given access to a job aid or a body image chart, students can communicate information about pain and injury location using basic vocabulary and gestures. Two, given basic understanding of the scenario, students can ask simple and necessary questions to assess the patient. Three, in a practice scenario, students can understand basic responses to questions asked about 75% of the time. And four, given a pain scale job aid, students can record a patient's pain scale identification. The instruction was developed using the learning management system of Schoology, and this was chosen based also on the needs assessment. A lot of students identified that they were familiar with Schoology, that they were confident they could use this. It is also popular within the district. A lot of staff use it, and so it is something where the content can be reshared and re-implemented no matter who the instructor is. There were several learning resources that were included, including Quizlet and Edpuzzle, Flipgrid, and Zoom. And I want to show you a little bit of the actual design of the actual project itself. So this is the unit, What Hurts? Words and Phrases for Pain and Bodily Injury Assessment for Instructional Design. Okay, so here we are in Schoology, and you can see that the unit is set up logically from beginning to end. Initially, students were given the objectives. There was an introductory activity with a real-world scenario to watch and to allow students to think about the terminology that would be important for them moving forward. And then in the first part of the unit, students were given vocabulary and several listening and practice vocabularies, but one of the items that students commented in the attitude survey at the end that they really liked were the virtual flashcards. So these flashcards on Quizlet allow students to click this button and hear how to pronounce the words. It allows them to see them visually.
Are you in pain?
And they can go through and mark the ones that they've learned and the ones they need to practice. There are also games here. Coming back to Schoology, after that, students were asked to do 2 listening comprehension videos, and these were done through Edpuzzle. Edpuzzle is a really great resource. It allowed students to watch video clips, and then comprehension questions popped up throughout the video to make sure that they were understanding what they heard patients saying in response to the basic questions they learned. So here we are in Flipgrid, and Flipgrid was the basically the hands-on experience that students requested. A lot of students in the needs analysis mentioned needing to participate in learning for it to really make sense to them. So students were given 3 different scenarios in English and prompted in English to respond in Spanish with the vocabulary they would need to use. So this one just says you arrive on the scene, a patient's lying on their side, their knees are drawn up, and then they're guided through. How would you ask the patient? Are you in pain? On a scale of 1 to 10, how bad is the pain? I'm going to take your pulse now. And then the prompt of what else? What else could you ask this patient to determine what's wrong or to assess them? Students responded very positively to this part of the learning. The initial phase of the learning unit was implemented on April 2nd. Students were given access to the vocabulary list in learning activities. On April 7th, the practice activities were made available to students. The evaluation and attitude survey feedback were completed between April 21st and 23rd. So there were 2 different components to the evaluation of this course. One was a learning evaluation to see how much of the content students became proficient in. And the other was just an attitude survey to give feedback on how the course went, what worked, what didn't work, what students would change. So starting with the evaluation of the learning scenario, the scenario was as follows. You arrive on the scene and an English-speaking neighbor is with the patient. She says that she called 911. She was out walking her dog when she found the patient passed out in the driveway. The patient is in his 60s. He is now alert and sitting up. He is holding his left arm and bleeding from his forehead. You will now assess him. Make sure to ask what hurts. Ask where the pain is on a scale of 1 to 10. Ask necessary assessment questions to determine what is happening and make sure you record the location and level of his pain. And so based on this, students were scored on a rubric that was created based on the unit objectives. So for objective 1, given access to the job aid, students can communicate information about pain and injury location. 83% of the students were proficient. As far as being able to ask the necessary questions, only 50% of students were proficient. And the feedback from students here afterwards was 2 of the 6 students really had trouble with the online learning. They were having technology and internet connectivity problems and were not able to complete the full practice unit. They only got through some parts. The student that scored not proficient has never taken a Spanish class before, and so he mentioned this part being particularly difficult just in the pronunciation and knowing how to study a language. Students, 66.7% of students were able to understand the responses that I gave them as the Spanish-speaking patient, 75% of the time or more. And 83.3% of them were able to ask how bad the pain was on a scale of 1 to 10 and record a student's pain level. After this was completed, students anonymously filled out the Google form, and the feedback from students was that the example and the instruction was clear. Learning was useful. Most of the students felt that they could use this learning in the future without the assistance of the teacher or the job aid, and the students were satisfied overall with the unit. Some of the learner feedback. One student said, the most important thing I learned was basic vocabulary to assess Spanish-speaking patients in need of emergent care. Another said, I really liked being able to see the phrases written and then speak them during a scenario, which was consistent with the needs analysis done in the beginning of this process. And lastly, I really hope that this course is approved. It would be highly beneficial even if a student took the course and didn't go into healthcare. You never know who or what situation you will find yourself in, and remembering even just a couple of these phrases could make a world of difference. So based on pilot participant feedback, a few minor changes were made. We added words of introduction. For the students that had not taken as much Spanish, felt like they needed that information to be able to introduce themselves to the patient. Words of comfort were added, and that is in alignment with the signature program curriculum. The students mentioned that they are taught to put the patient at ease with things like, I am here to help you, don't worry, we'll take good care of you. Phrases to determine a patient's level of consciousness. So who are you? Where are you? What day is it? The phrase, I am going to examine you, was changed to say, may I examine you? This is also in alignment with the medical science program curriculum. Students are taught to ask permission and not to state what they're going to do. And the phrase, I'm going to transport you to the hospital now, was also added to the vocabulary. So my reflection on this whole process, it was challenging to design for a topic I don't know much about. All of my previous design experience and teaching experience is with content that I know. I know how to teach Spanish and teach Spanish grammar, but I've never taken a medical course. I don't know the medical science program because I'm not a part of it. And so this was the first time that I had to lean on subject matter experts and the pilot participants and other staff just to understand how the program worked and what would be beneficial for this course unit. The pilot participant feedback, because of that, was critical to the design. Hearing what was working and what wasn't working and what they felt like they needed to learn really guided the design and development of this unit. Implementing the pilot virtually was challenging. Originally, I was going to do it face-to-face and be able to be there and do the practice scenarios live and test them live, being there with them, but doing everything over Zoom and Flipgrid, it just changed the design process. Moving forward, I recommend that this course is offered in a hybrid format with at least some face-to-face component when it's possible. Obviously, in our current situation, it has not been possible, but when it is, I think the face-to-face component would be beneficial for students. And I also will recommend that students wait to take this course until they've had at least 1 year of Spanish as a background that can set them up for success. I would like to thank all of my professors at Emporia State University for your help and your guidance and your responses to my many questions throughout this learning process. I'd like to thank the pilot participants, the Shawnee Mission School District staff and administration, and my amazing and supportive family for helping make this project possible. I look forward to the full implementation of this course and what it will mean for our students and our community in Shawnee Mission. Thank you for watching.